Awesome. All right, welcome everyone. We're at the bottom of page 20. If I made you run. And we're kicking off with the sentence moderate drinkers. And we're talking about the idea of what is the difference between these misunderstandings and what makes an alcoholic. So because Howard was going to fill in and Terry's doing some driving, so we'll toss it over to Howard to kick us off. Over to you, Howard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slam on the brakes and bang into the windshield. Okay, hang on. Let me just get my equilibrium back. Okay. Um, Moderate drinkers. I've got that whole paragraph highlighted. Incidentally, you may want to underline moderate drinkers because that's what we're talking about. Have little trouble giving up liquor entirely if they have a good reason for it. And you may want to underline they can take it or leave it alone, because they don't have the allergy and the obsession. They're moderate drinkers. If you can take it or leave it, you don't have the allergy or the obsession. You want to add anything to that?
Absolutely. I definitely can't relate to being a moderate drinker, but there are areas in my life. I know it's me. I'm as surprised as you are. Oh, what page? We're at the very bottom of page 20, the first bottom paragraph. That's a weird way to describe it. Moderate drinkers. And so what we're going to see, moderate drinkers, hard drinkers, real alcoholics. Now, the moderate drinkers, yeah, like Howard said, can take it or leave it alone. Now, when it comes to me, with alcohol, absolutely not. Other mind altering substances, absolutely not. But here is an area where I can take it or leave it alone. Pop or soda or cola. Definitely not Coke though. That one I can't take or leave alone. You know what I'm saying. But what happens? I don't buy pop when I'm out and about. I don't buy Coca-Cola when I'm out and about. But I'll if I'm going to a restaurant, I'll maybe get pop with my meal. But I don't have it when I'm home. And by the way, I'm not anti-pop. I don't have an opinion. But I'm just saying I can take it. I can leave it alone. No allergy, no obsession. Back to you, Howard and Terry, whenever you're able, hop in because I want to give Howard as much time before. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It just basically, I've never been able to take it or leave it alone. So I am not one of those people. When I start working with people, I always like to triage them. And the first thing we do is read this section because people do get here by mistake. There's a lot of people in the fellowship by mistake. I went to treatment with a lot of those people who went through treatment because they got jammed up. They were not moderate drinkers. They were probably the next drinker. So I'll probably save that the rest of that story for a minute from now. I'm sorry. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker, and let's underline that. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. That's because he's addicted to the chemical. We're dealing with highly addictive chemicals here. It is possible to become addicted and not be an addict or not be an alcoholic. That's what this guy is. Those are the guys I've been in treatment with who got jammed up because, for one reason or another, the judge sent them to rehab, or the wife sent them to rehab, or the boss sent them to rehab. And he likes what he sees in the rehabs, and they tell him when he gets out, go to AA meetings. And he comes to us and he brings his wonderful method of sharing, and he likes what he sees. And I'm glad he's here because he keeps our statistics up high. But don't ask those guys to sponsor you. They didn't have to work the steps. They don't think you need to work the steps because it's not a life or death situation. And here's what Bill says: it may cause him to die a few years before his time, but if not several, if a sufficient, strong reason, not S, reasons, one, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also underline, stop, or moderate although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. He may need that detox because he's become physically addicted to whatever, to the alcohol he's drinking, to the cocaine he's snorting, whatever he's using. That guy has a physical allergy, but he doesn't have the mental obsession.
Like the guy we were watching last night on the TV.
What was that?
Remember the documentary?
Mm,
Remember?
no.
Remember him?
Um, sorry, I got
Oh, sorry.
confused. I don't remember that.
Well, I'll have to find out about what they were watching later on. I'm not kidding. We're all on the edge of our seats. What documentary? Kathy will have to look it up.
I know
Well-
it, but it might interfere with the tradition.
No, well, we were watching a documentary on Puff Daddy, but is that what you're referring
Yeah,
to?
remember the new drug?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. There's a new drug. What do they call it? They
Uh,
call it pink cocaine. That's a combination of a number of things that is highly addictive by its
Yes.
nature. But that's what I'm talking about. The nature of these chemicals are highly addictive. If you take them enough, frequently enough, you'll become addicted to it. You'll have a physical allergy develop. But once you're cleaned out, you can drink and use socially because you don't have the social, you don't have the spiritual malady, and you don't have the mental obsession. You just have a physical allergy that is built up as a result of the chemicals you were taking. That's what we're talking about here. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Absolutely. You see, what differentiates the hard drinker or the hard user or the hard, whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study and those of us who have to be here for sure, have I had any, and I love that Howard was saying reasons. I hadn't seen it like that. And I love it when we get to see things in a new way. Have I had any sufficiently strong reasons to stop or moderate? And we can stop and look at what are the things in my life that were sufficiently strong. Was it possibly losing relationships? Was it losing goals, dreams, jobs, opportunities? Were there warnings from friends, family, loved ones, employers, coworkers? Did I want to stop and find that I could not? Is that my experience? And if my experience is, listen, I was trying a whole bunch of things, not everything, but not almost everything that I tried did not work. I could not experience permanent contented sobriety. I couldn't control the amount that I took for sure. That was apparent, readily apparent a long time ago. But also when I tried to put things between me and that first drink, it didn't work. It didn't work. I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. And I think you're parked. So over to Terry if you want to take it or pop into the next paragraph.
Yeah. Hey guys, thank you. And thank you, Howard, for stepping in as well. I didn't know I was going to get off at work at 8, but here I am. I like this trio. We had a nice duet, but I like the trio better. So thank you, Howard. Um, these pages, I like what Howard and like what Paige were saying. These are wonderful qualification pages, and you could really separate someone who is an actual alcoholic and who is not. Um, you know, I'm not different from other people. I'm different from other drinkers. I'm different from other users. And they give us descriptions of that. And Paige, I'm going to need your 1930s definition because this is just kind of hitting me right now. What's the definition of moderate? I kind of know what it means, but I would like to check that definition out and look at your own experience. Remember we talked about, am I an alcoholic or am I an addict or am I both or am I neither? And this will show this is really showing us the physical or the physical aspect of it with little parts of the mind here and there. But what is physically wrong with me when it comes to a substance? Now, when I'm a moderate drinker, can I take it or leave it alone if I have any trouble with giving it up? When it came to cocaine, absolutely not. When it came to alcohol, absolutely not. Someone take half a shot, like, yo, what are you doing with that half a shot? Like, give that to me, right? What about marijuana? Yeah, I was able to give it up entirely because I had a good reason for it. I felt like I was sleepy all the time. I didn't like it. I gave it up a long time ago. So I'm not I'm not a hard marijuana user. I'm a moderate marijuana user. Now I'm not downplaying that, look, go smoke marijuana now. No, I'm not saying that. Um, what I do is, and I was talking to someone yesterday about this as well, that if you are, what is it called? The California sober, Cali sober? Is that what it's called? When you're not drinking, but you're smoking weed. Well, let me explain something. If you have a medical card or whatever, you're smoking weed and you go to a deserted island, all right, and what happens? You forget your marijuana. So what's gonna happen? You're gonna feel angst. Doctor's opinion says restless, irritable, and discontent. You're gonna feel a little depressed, like you can't sleep or you can't chill out. Then you'll have so much mental anxiety, and then you'll start being driven. You'll start being what is it called? An unlovely creature, sober, and then you're gonna be so filled up with so much. Let's just say you need something for relief. You need something for as a solution. And what do they got at this little private island? A bar. Let's go to the bar, baby. Let's go there. So I'm not downplaying that. Like, look, I'm powerless over everything. I'm a garbage head. Like you could say that. But I'm looking at what I'm looking at where I lost the power. When I drink, I lose all control. I'm gonna look at that. We're looking at the physical aspect of that. Now, what about this hard drinker? Now, it sounds like us, like physically and mentally impaired. That's me. I may die a few years before my time. That sounds like me. We meet a lot of them and they look like us. And I love what Howard was saying. A lot of hard drinkers or hard users need medical attention. These people might be chilling with you in detox and actual AA meetings, just kicking it and calling themselves alcoholics. Don't even understand why they're alcoholic. They just say it because they say, "Hi, my name is Terry. I'm an alcoholic." That's the way they diagnose themselves. Now, this is actually the best way, I would say the most effective way to diagnose you. Let's separate the real alcoholic from the hard alcoholic, or the real alcohol, a real user from the hard user. If sufficiently strong reason. Ill health. Look at your current experience, whatever drug that you're thinking about right now. Ill health. I did not like being sleepy when I was smoking marijuana. Was I able to stop, which is that's the definition of the obsession. Moderate means, am I able to moderate what's in me? Can I put it down? Right? The allergy and the obsession. Am I able to stop or moderate my marijuana use? Yeah, I was. Well, what about if sufficiently strong easing of ill health, like a warning of a doctor? I had a doctor point blank tell me to my face, Terry, you will die if you ever drink again, right? I will ever drink again. Was I able to stop or moderate after that? No, I was not. What about when it comes to cocaine? Was I able to stop or moderate? Man, I, I couldn't last more than 30 minutes to an hour after using a bump of cocaine. Well, what about Xanax, man? What about Seroquel? Man, I was up to 400 milligrams of Seroquel a day. Well, am I able to stop or moderate my usage of Seroquel, right? Because it becomes, what is it? Change your environment. If I'm in another country or I'm at a hotel, am I able to sleep? I need something to sleep when I'm on vacation. I need my Seroquel. No, I'm not able to stop or moderate my Seroquel use. Well, look at other thing. What about gambling? This is an all-inclusive study. And yet again, I've said this before, and I really want you guys to really pay attention because what you're going to find out, yeah, I was just maybe a hard user, or I was just a hard drinker, but I'm an addict, or I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not an addict. But I'm in AA, but I'm a drug addict. Well, here's the deal. We're going through this process so that you could have a self-diagnosis process so that you could go through the 12 steps to recovery. This is an all-inclusive fellowship right now that we're talking about, which is wonderful. I love that. Meaning, but the whole point is that after you go through this process, you go to your design fellowship and you make it strong. I'll tell you right now, Cocaine Anonymous is one of the strongest fellowships I've ever been part of. And the third requirement is the only desire to stop using any mind-altering substances. That is pretty universal. And I was a tradition guy for a very long time. And I was like, singleness of purpose, Oxford Group, Washingtonians, like single, all that stuff. But I go to this place and I find that there's people just like us, like Howard, just like Paige, who are armed with the facts about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and taking this message out. Did I just lose you guys or no? Can you guys hear me?
We're still here. We still
Okay, good. I think
good.
I lost something in my left ear, something. I think I lost battery in my left ear. But yeah, like I'm saying, go to your specific fellowship and you go make that fellowship strong. What about Al-Anon, right? Look at it with this. Are you able to give up the alcoholic at a dime? You know, are you able to just stop or moderate? Right? Well, are you able to, for a strong reason, like falling in love with someone else? Can you not control someone else's behavior? Are you able to do that? Look at your own experience with this and use these words as a qualification for yourself. And also when you're qualifying someone who you're going through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been through a lot of people and I've gone into this part of the book and they're identifying, and I just read kind of little snippets of here, pages in here and there, right? They're relating to the Bill's story. They're relating to what it says on page 52 with the bedevilments. But then when they get up here, they're not relating with their experience when it comes to being the real alcoholic versus the hard drinker. I have taken people through the work and they found out they are not the real deal. What do I do there? What do I do there? And I remember I called up a friend because I didn't understand how to approach that. Like, what happens? Do I say, "Hey, good, have a good life, go enjoy yourself, like, go take care, blah blah blah." I didn't know how to approach it. I called up my friend, and he said, "Well, regardless, you're still sacrificing your time to read the big book out loud to someone else, and you're giving them their truth about themselves. Regardless, they're gonna skate off from you, or they'll stop working with you, or they'll just start drinking again." Or X, Y, and Z, they could just hang around. Long story short, they know the truth. But am I hurting these people by explaining them their truth? No, I'm not. I'm letting them have an experience, what it really means to be an alcoholic, because I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. You have the opportunity to use pages 20 and 21 and 22 to really as a tool for yourself and for other people. When it came to gambling, I was able to stop or moderate. When it came to sex, another bugaboo, a lot of people in the fellowships, right? When it came to sex, I was able to stop or moderate. I was a hard sex user. Kind of funny to say that out loud, right? But I was able to stop or moderate because of that, because of a sufficiently strong reason, like falling in love with my wife. I was able to stop or moderate my usage with or having sex with other girls because I fell in love. Look at your own experience and related to the text. Look at this book as a book of mirrors. All right. All right. Back over. Howard or Kathy. I don't know. Pew pew where to go now. I'm at the turning point. Why don't you guys take over?
Paige. Paige is the MC here.
Oh.
Ages,
Don't expect me to do rapping. Can't rap presents, can't rap music. So what we got is Terry one. I'm trying to do 80 things at once. I know that's a shocker. Me overdoing it and creating my own sense of overwhelm and overstimulation caused by nothing. I'm as surprised as everyone else, but trying to put info in the chat. But I did look up moderate, and we do or moderate, and we got a wonderful definition in the chat. But in my 1930s dictionary, because I'm fun at parties, I got one. It says to keep within bounds. To keep within bounds. So when I was drinking, when I was using, when I was engaging with whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study, was I able to keep that within bounds, or did I find more often than not, this girl, I was out of bounds? And then it says, lesson. So as if once I start, was I able to just land, slow it down, pump the brakes, or am I going hard? And my experience is that I went hard. So let's dive in. What about the real alcoholic? So this is what it means to be an alcoholic. So it says, and this is important for diagnosis. He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. You see, there are oftentimes people that come and they're get stuck on this idea that no, but I was able to control it when I remember one time at a sponsee that was like, we diagnosed it that she was a moderate drinker at like 9, and by the time she had hit like 14, she was a hard drinker, but by 16, she was full blown. So there are people that drink or use or whatever brings you here that drink into it or use into it or act out into it. And they might become the real deal after a while or might become full blown after a while. And so that is helpful because if I'm working with somebody and man, there's a thing that happens, and I don't know if it's happened to you, but as we talk about the allergy and we talk about what happens, I take that drink, I take that drug, I engage in that addictive behavior, a switch goes off in the back of my head and it tells me more, and I need more, and I can't stop. You know what I mean? I'm going until I've run out of ways and means. I black out, pass out, like I'm done. But if you're like me, you also think about the few times that, wait a minute, there was that one time back in 86 where I went home with dry pants. I was born in 88, so I should at least be a little honest about that. But like, oh, there was that one time back in, oh, whatever, or you know what I mean? We remember the exceptions, not the rule. But it's my experience that I went out every single time, either trying to control it or avoid the consequences. And just like poor Howard when I threw him under the bus, we slam into the wall with the physical allergy. Has that been my experience more often than not? And so, and even looking at like the difference between a hard drink and a real alcoholic. Earlier, well, actually, it talks about like actually, I do a bunch of big book studies, so I'm like, wait a minute, did we talk about that last week, or was that me talking about it somewhere else? Never mind. But we talk about though you can stay sober for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic, and we're going to talk about that in the future in the chapter more about alcoholism. That idea that like, because again, if you're like me, you're sitting here and you're looking for every reason that I don't fit, every reason that I don't belong. And if you're like me, I was able to stay sober for a little bit. You know, I could do it for a couple months. I was sober and having a great time. Oh, and what would happen? Inevitably would come that first drink. Inevitably it would come. And it's not if I have this illness, it's not a matter of if, but when. So it goes on to say he may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, I always like to say only a drunk's going to make a career out of it. You know what I mean? Oh, I was not doing a 9 to 5. I was working overtime, burning that midnight oil, oh, climbing the corporate ladder, which meant that I was like face down in my vomit. But oh, CEO Paige of Alcoholism Industries, here I am. And so it talks about, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. So once I put it in me, once I engage in that behavior, once I start, do I have that experience where it begins to set off and off I go? Is that my experience? If we want, I can pass it off, or I can keep going for the next one. I'll pass it off.
Before we proceed, let's take a second and review what we're talking about. I put it in the chat, and let me just put this up here for a second. We talked about, can you see that, guys?
In just a second. It's saying, oh, we got it now.
3 types of drinkers we've been talking about. We got the moderate drinker, And we're centering on whether the drinker can give up drinking. There are 4 other types of alcoholics discussed in Two Wives, if you're familiar with that chapter. But in those instances, Bill talks about whether they want to stop drinking. Here, we're talking about the 3 types who could or could not give up drinking. The moderate drinker has little trouble giving it up. No allergy, no obsession. The hard drinker, drinking is a problem, but if a sufficient reason, as Paige and Terry mentioned, they can stop or moderate. So they have no allergy, but they have a mental obsession. And the real alcoholic, at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control because he has the allergy and he has the obsession. So if you want to compare these to the 4 alcoholics mentioned in Wives, there is a difference. The Alcoholics and Wives focuses on whether they want to give up drinking. In this case, we're looking at whether they can give up drinking.
Hmm.
Thanks.
Over to you, Terry. Pew pew.
Yeah, I love that. Look at your experience in your career, right? In your drinking or using career. I like to reflect. I mean, I didn't think I was a real alcoholic until I look back and I reflect more and more on it. That when I did drink, especially tequila, whiskey, and vodka, whenever I drank it, I began to lose all control. That word all, that's my favorite word in the big book, which I know we looked up the definition of all. Look at your current experience with that. Once you put it into your body, right? And what I want you guys to do, and here's a little exercise I do as well, on the top of pages 21 all the way to 43, what you could do is on the top of that page, you could say, me on my own power, I'm going to drink again. Now, what I do is when I see the word control or I see the word power, or I see the word choice, what I do is I put the word power above it. Here's control. And I also put the word choice below that. So when I lose all control, I also lose power and choice. We're really smashing this idea or this concept and giving you knowledge and experiential to your past and helping you reflect on your past. Now, did I lose all choice in the matter when I started to drink? Or did I lose all power as well? You know, and what I used to do is I put on page 40, was it 43? Yeah, on 43, there's a little indentation. I used to have it in my older book. On the little indent, where the hell did it go? Where did I put it? There's an indentation, I forgot where it is. Well, I put the definitions of power. And Paige, if you could give us the definition of power. I know the current definition of power means the ability to produce an effect. Also, I look at the definition of control, the ability of limiting something or controlling something, and the word choice, the ability to select 2 or 3 more options. So if you could give me the 1930s definition of those, that'd be great. The next paragraph, and this is one of the most powerful paragraphs in my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, because it really highlighted what it felt like to look at myself. I didn't think I was like these words that are coming up. I like to put this in the first person. I like to take statements and turn it into questions. You guys know that. Really look at your current experience with whatever drug of choice or whatever you want to call it, whatever drug you're currently looking at, if you lost power, choice, and control with, right? Here's a fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. Put power above that, put choice below that. Terry does absurd and incredible and tragic things while drinking. What about with cocaine using? Or what about with nicotine? What about when it comes to sex? When it comes about partners, sex partners, gambling? Do you do absurd and incredible tragic things while doing that? I could do an hour talk on just that. He is the real Dr. Jekyll. This is Terry, the real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Terry is seldom mildly intoxicated. Why be mildly intoxicated? I'm rarely seldom. I like oblivion. I'm an oblivion drinker. I'm an oblivion user. That's the way I roll. Right? And I like what you guys were talking about with the potential alcoholic, the real alcoholic. I mean, I have a friend who was a type two in the chapter two wives, alky, and then became a type four in recovery. It's a spectrum. Depends on where you're at. I didn't relate to the real cocaine addict until the last 2 years before I got sober, right? It took off. Something happened at some stage of my cocaine career, I lost all control, right? What about this? Terry is always, I like that word always too, always more or less insanely drunk. Who's that? I'll raise my hand on that. That's me. Terry's disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. Terry may be this is one of the lines that hooked me. This is the first time I've ever read this book, and I was like, holy shnikes. This is me. Terry may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let Terry drink for the day, he becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial when drinking or using. Anyone relate to that? I wasn't really dangerous, Howard, but I was pretty disgusting. I was disgusting, man. You could have saw me, man. I was cutting my own hair. I had hair growing that side. I had a little mullet in the back, right? I mean, I haven't showered in 2 or 3 weeks at one point. I'm living in my car, weighed 130. I was disgusting. Terry, man, as a positive genius, like I'm a genius at this. I relate. This is one of the sentences that got me too. I'm a genius. I'm really smart when it comes to this. Forgetting tight in exactly the wrong moment. Who's done that? Like, I've done that more than one occasion, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. Terry's often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor. But that respect, Terry is incredibly dishonest and selfish. What is the most selfish thing I could do? And drink or drug. When you're drinking or drugging, do you care? Does anyone care about anyone else? I do. I definitely don't. What about dishonest as well? I have this fear that you're gonna find out that I'm drunk at an AA meeting. Who's been drunk in an AA meeting? I have. Oh, I'm sober. I got 71 days and I'm sober and I'm drunk or I'm high. I thought I was crafty. I'd get high and go to meetings because the alcoholics won't smell it on my breath, right? But then I'll go to the bathroom, take a bump, and now I smell like cocaine. You know, cocaine's got a smell. Little did I know that. Okay, where was I? Terry often possesses special abilities, another line that hit me, skills, aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. Terry uses these gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and he pulls that baby down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. This is another line that got me. Terry is the fellow who goes to bed so messed up. I was gonna say the F word, but I know Howard's here. I'm very careful with my language. He is so messed up, intoxicated. He ought to sleep the clock around. Who did that? I wouldn't, you know how I would detox by myself? I would try to sleep as much as possible. Wake up in shivers and cold sweats and a puddle of sweat from detoxing from opiates, just because that's the best way I thought that I had to get out of it. I actually had to take off a couple days at work in order to detox myself. Yet early, oh, I like that yet words. Yet early in the morning, well, not just morning, early in the morning, Terry searches madly Oh my God. What's the 1930s definition of madly? Paige, can you get that for me? Thank you. Searches madly. I know what that feels like. I know that. It's a gnosis, right? I know what that is. Madly for the bottle of the drugs he misplaced the night before. Who did that? I remember the first thing I would think of when I wake up was not, oh, good morning, sweetheart. I love you. How are you? Wasn't, oh, I gotta put on, take a shower and get ready for work. Oh, what a beautiful morning. It's 80 degrees outside. What a beautiful I could hear the birds chirping. What a beautiful day. No, the first thing I think about when I open these eyes is where's my alcohol and where's my drugs? And what I do is I search madly for this stuff. I don't know if you guys remember just kind of pacing back and forth. I have like some memories going back here. All right. I was so paced back and forth, looking everywhere, up, down, left, right. Paige, I was so good at hiding my drugs from my wife that I could not find the drugs that I hid from my wife. Who's ever done that? I was so good at it that I would lose it. And then I'd pray. This is the only time I would pray. I'd pray to God that she would not find out, that she would not find it. And then I would pray that I would find it one day and it would be the best day in my life. All right? Oh man, this is getting fun. But if I can afford it, well, at the very end, I couldn't afford anything. He may have liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him and throw it down the toilet, right? Who's done that? Right? I was so selfish and dishonest, man. You be putting a line of cocaine out there, and they're like, Terry, you want to come join? Yeah, let's go do this, right? And then I'll be doing their cocaine while I got cocaine in my pocket. I got enough cocaine to last me that night after the party and the next morning because I knew I was going to search madly for something in the morning. That's how I rolled, right? And I didn't care that I was using I'm not offering you my stuff. I'm not. What about? I don't want my wife to find that stuff and throw it down the waste pipe. I'm gonna start using waste pipe instead of toilet now. Hey, honey, shut the waste pipe for me? Flush the waste pipe, sweetheart. All right. As the matters grows worse, Terry begins to use a combination of high-power sedative. Hold on. Does Bill talk about drugs? Did Bill just mention drugs in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous? That's actually just for alcohol. Yeah, he just did. High-powered. That sounds like hardcore drugs to me. And Howard, if you could, elaborate on the history of what sedatives he was taking, I would love to know more about that. That little rapscallion. What's up,
Goof,
Howard?
goofballs, barbiturates.
Oh, okay. It's my kind of guy, man. I never did barbiturates. Bill got me on that one. Okay, so Bill was using barbiturates and booze just to quiet his nerves. Who can relate to this? So he could go to work. Man, I had to have a drink just to eat breakfast. Anyone done that? Anyone have the DTs where they're shaking so much and you have to drink in order to stop this motion right here that I'm doing in front of the screen? They don't do that. We're talking about the physical aspect of liquor in our system, right? We're talking about the physical allergy, right? This is really deeping into it. And yet again, you could put your own experience with other substances that you think you might have a problem with and relate it to your current experience with using these words and direct it towards you as a mirror, right? Ask yourself that. I mean, I couldn't even go to work. I couldn't even be at work at the very end of my drinking and drugging. I couldn't even be at work unless I was lit up. I just had to drink and drug just to feel normal, just to operate, just to operate. All right, I'm taking way too much time. Sorry, guys. Uh, Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine. Bill is talking about drugs a lot in this paragraph page. Morphine or some sedative, barbiturates, which to taper off. Who's done that? Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. All right, guys, back over to you. Sorry for taking up too much time.
Nope, you're great. Thank you, Terry. So dictionary corner over here, which I don't mean in a negative or derogatory way. I'm having a delightful time looking up words, but I have a bit of a confession. You said, look up the word power, and I'm like, great. And I just, all of my attention went into the dictionary, and that's the noise, Howard. That's the noise it makes. It goes, the attention span. Actually, normally it's like, it's gone. It's gone. That's my attention span. I'm pretty sure so power, I'll give you the definition, but then I didn't at all hear the second word that you wanted me to look up, but I had a feeling, I forgot to turn those off.
Yeah, power, choice,
It
and
was choice.
control.
Oh man,
Choice
I had a
and
feeling it was.
control.
All right, don't worry.
Yep.
I got you on choice, and I forgot to turn off the reactions. All righty. So power. So the faculty of doing or performing something. So do I have no power, that inability to perform or that inability to do? It says ability, energy, force, strength, rule or authority, dominion, government, influence. Do I have any of that over the first drink, drug, whatever brings you to this study? And then I did look up one of those. I got choice, the act of choosing, option, thing chosen. So, but it's that ability to choose. And the truth is, if I have the ability to choose whether I will drink or use or pick up or relapse, I never would do it. I would never do it based on the consequences because of my lack of control. I was just about looking up that word because at the very last minute, I had a feeling. It's like, what if he said control? And this was after I was like, I'll just ask somebody. And it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to ask somebody what word it was. I've got this thing. Sound familiar in other areas of our life? I know nobody relates. But that idea of I do not have the power to choose whether or not I will relapse, what that means is I will relapse. If I have ever experienced that morning after where I've said, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. If I've promised, now I make a lot of promises, but if I've met those promises, I don't think I do because I came to and broke hearts. But if I made those promises and I found that I did it again and again and again, that means I do not have the ability to choose whether I will do it or not. Now, one more word I had to look up was madly. Now, I don't have madly in my 1930s dictionary, but I do have mad. And mad is in the appropriate context because it says mentally disordered, insane, furious with rage. So this madly, like frantic, like just absolutely out of my mind, frantically looking for the thing that feels like it will give me sanity. And I also, just for those that are wondering, because as Howard's been asking for dictionary corner, some people have been wonderful in putting definitions in the chat. I love that. Thank you so much. Keep doing that. And some people have the unofficial or official unofficial 1930s dictionary, which is I think based off a New England sort of version. I don't have that one. I just got a dictionary from the 1930s because again, like this is just one that I got. And so, but it's fun and I enjoy having a little dictionary time. So dictionary time, pew pew. All right, and just to talk a little about what we're reading. And so when it talks about, yes, tight equals drunk, that is helpful because I'm so familiar with these old timey words. And then I sprinkle in my other old timey words, which don't have anything to do with anything. Like I could have chosen a simpler word, but my brain is like, no, let's use this one. So yes, tight means drunk. So when it talks about this lack of control, for me, I always look at that through the lens of that physical allergy. And when it talks about absurd, incredible, we're not talking about incredible like getting a Nobel Peace Peace Prize. Do you know what I mean? It's not incredible like I have solved world hunger. It's more like incredible as in the Hulk. You guys know what I'm saying? Like smash. And I don't have to do physical smashing. I just got to smash the emotional fabric of my life to pieces. Now, when it talks about he is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that story is it's written by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I always want to say Dr. Robert Louis Stevenson, because that's how my brain works. He's not a doctor, but I think somebody should give him an honorary doctorate. So when I say it wrong, I'm really right. But Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Now, for those, I actually don't think anyone's going to get this reference, but where I learned about that story first and foremost, I grew up in the 90s on PBS. There was a show called Wishbone, and it was a Jack Russell Terrier that would take you through various literature. Yeah, you know what's up. Yeah. So keep in mind, yes, my Wishbone peeps. So I go back to Wishbone, a Jack Russell Terrier explaining Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So Howard will correct me when I get it wrong. That's what he's here for. And much more than that. He's got a full range of skills and attributes, but that's just one thing that he's got going. And but the story is of the scientist, Dr. Jekyll. And what he's doing is he's combining and making this potion. And he takes a drink of this potion. And oh man, it feels good. He feels strong. He feels powerful. And he begins to turn into this creature, this Mr. Hyde, who goes out and starts terrorizing London and comes back and he has a bit of a hangover. And he's like, whoa, what did I do the morning after, you know? And you see, I want to emphasize something about the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, is that Dr. Jekyll's problem, his main problem, is not that he is a potion that he takes that turns him into this monster. His real problem is that he cannot stop himself from taking the potion. And that is my real problem. It is a problem that once I start, I can't stop. But my real problem is that I go back to it again and again and again. And I will be corrected. But I've heard that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is an allegory, a metaphor for Robert Louis Stevenson's alcoholism. And that was me waiting for the correction. But a fun fact is that his grandfather designed every lighthouse in Scotland. And now this is a tangent and a half. But I am tying it in. It's a spiritual tangent. Bear with me. Wishbone was the one that was a little more, out of bounds. But he designed every lighthouse in Scotland. And I love the idea that I crawl my way into the rooms of 12-step, a Dr. Jekyll. Yeah, finally a tangent. We were waiting for one of those. I crawl into the rooms, a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. But what I get to be as a result of taking the course of action which lies before us is I get to be that lighthouse. I get to shine that light that I promise is not my light. I get to be that example of this power. I get to show others who are in the rocks, who are drowning, who are, shipwrecked. I get to show where safe passage lies. I get to be an example of this thing. And that is powerful. And that is a tangent. And you might ask, why do you know that? I'm as baffled as you are. Probably my time spent alone in dictionary corner. That nobody puts baby in a corner. Paige will go willingly. What are we doing? What's happening? All right. And then when it talks about he frequently becomes disgustingly, even dangerously antisocial. I remember one time I was doing a meeting that was like first half big book study, second half shares back, and I was asked if I could facilitate. And I was telling this story, and I will tell you this story about my example of disgustingly, even dangerously antisocial, and we'll see what happens. So I was telling the story. I go to the liquor store and I get a bottle of Axe Head. If you don't know what that is, probably, I don't even know if they still have it. It's malt liquor, think Colt 45, because I am a classy sort of lady. The price was cheap, the percentage was high, off we go. And I was doing the logical morning exercise of drinking that in the parking lot because that is what one does on a probably like a Wednesday morning. And I was drinking that in the parking lot. Now I had finished it. This isn't important. It was completed. And I got the notion in my head, you know what would be a helpful, let's just call it a chaser to my Axe Head Colt 45. I would like to self-harm. So I put the glass bottle in a bag and I was smashing it in the parking lot to get glass with to self-harm. Now, now some of your reactions are a little like the reactions I got when I shared that at that meeting. Normally, I'll tell a story and you get those nods of like, uh-huh, yeah, the nods of identification. I saw some of those faces. It was blank stare and like horrified. So that is my disgustingly and dangerously antisocial. By the way, the liquor store owner came out and was yelling at me. And at the time, because I was a little, I was a little tipsy. I couldn't get what his issue was. I figured it out. I figured it out. I found my harms. I got there. The exact nature of my wrongs. All right. But yeah, when it talks about getting tight, getting drunk at exactly the wrong moment, do I have examples of that? And that is the point that is pointing to a sign of the mental obsession. And then it talks about how I build it up, build it up, build it up, build it up, tear it down. And do I know what that's like to put the bottle down, to put the drink down, to put the substance or the behavior down and begin to repair the damage, to begin to get like reputation and money and status. I never had any of those things, but things similar to that, like building it up, building it up, building it up, trust, building it up. And then the mental obsession comes and I tear it down again and again and again. And hiding the booze, hiding the drugs, man, that was something I related to too. And what I want to point out is on page 21 to the bottom of page 22, we see a progression. It starts with, hey, once I start, do I not have any control? But then it goes on to, am I mixing my substances? Am I trying to use, medication? Usually, things like benzos to wean off alcohol. Or am I combining substances just so I can show up and function? Listen, I was making cocktails, but I promise you, none of them were to be found on a fancy like cocktail party, menu. I'm talking cocktails. Woo! The stuff that says like don't take with alcohol. Yeah. The stuff that's like may cause drowsiness, do not operate heavy machinery. Yes. I also would just sprinkle in a little bit of stimulants there because you got to level it off. I don't have a problem, you guys. I'm just into science. Real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde over here. But is that my experience? And if it's not my experience, but I'm seeing myself on page 21, seeing myself on page 22 is inevitable. And so when we talk about sanitariums, when we talk about hospitals, what we're talking about, did I find myself in detoxes, psych wards, emergency rooms? Did I find myself in sober living? Did I find myself in jails? Did I find myself in rehabs? Did I find myself in those places where the doors get locked and I have to make my bed? It's not a choice. You know what I'm saying? Did I find myself there? And we see the progression. Now, I'm just going to read the next paragraph. It says, this is by no means a comprehensive picture. We're not saying this is every single, one of us. As our behavior patterns vary. No, I don't think I got a single nod with my accent store, my glass outside a liquor store. No, I don't think none of you classy folk. Look at you. I bet you guys horrified reactions. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure the people that were driving driving by were probably more horrified than the people in the Zoom who were listening. But uh, when it talks about like, okay, maybe we weren't as weird as Paige, not as bad as Paige, as weird as Paige, but this description should identify him roughly. After reading this, do I find myself roughly identified? Do I find myself a little cold out? Do we feel like somebody took my covers and gave them a yoink and it's like, ooh, I'm a little exposed? Does this sound like me? Lack of control, lack of choice. I'll toss it over to Howard if you want to wrap us up.
Well, yeah, I want to go back to Jekyll and Hyde for a second because his real problem, what was his real problem? He had these two characters that Louis Stevenson created. He created Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll was everybody's friend. Dr. Jekyll was the nicest guy on the street. Dr. Jekyll, everyone said he had a great sense of humor, a great demeanor. He's the nicest guy in the world. His problem was inside, he didn't feel any of those things. He saw other people doing things with ease that he wished he could do. He had what I heard someone call, they defined alcoholism as the loneliness of onlyness, that he could be in a crowded room in a large concert hall filled with people and still feel isolated and alone. And that was his real problem. He wanted to find something that would take him out of himself. So he came up with this concoction that way overshot the mark because in the book, he actually killed somebody that was close to him to show how much of a monster he was. And incidentally, Robert Louis Stevenson was also probably an addict and an alcoholic. He was addicted to cocaine and ergo was a grain that he would chew that contained lysergic acid. One last thing. We talked about in this paragraph that Terry read, as matters grow worse, he uses a high-powered combination of high-powered sedative and alcohol. Basically, as the progression continues, at the end of the progression, when he bottoms out, what does he do? Alcohol and drugs. What did Bill do at the end of his progression? Alcohol and drugs. Remember? Alcohol and high-powered sedatives landed him on the rocks. Landing him on the rocks means he bottomed out. Dr. Bob had a 17-year addiction to goofballs. All of them progressed from alcohol to alcohol and drugs. End of story.
Well,
Sorry, I
that
was
was
taking sticky notes out of the out of the dictionary. I was having dictionary time. Is there anything you wanted to say, Terry, before we wrap it up?
yeah. Thank you, Howard and Paige. This is great. And I mean, I'm looking at these pages, and this person is dead. This person is no longer active uh, out in the world acting like this. But if I stop doing what is highly suggested to do here, um, if I took one drink, he'll be easily resurrected again. Uh, period.
Period.
Yeah. And it's funny. It, I've told my story to my family members. They've listened to my tapes, and they're all like, "Ah, how could you do that?" And when we read this, we laugh. Like I'm laughing. I'm like, this is hilarious, the stuff that I did, and this is really what it. That's why I'm really strong on recommending to you to go to that fellowship that you crave, right? And make that fellowship very strong because it needs it. And a last thing I want to say, it says, but this description should identify him roughly. And I was reading chapter 61 or page 60, if you go to page 60 in the big book, and I understand what where's it at? Why am I so slow with the pages here? All right, and I'll shut up after this. It says, our description of the alcoholic, basically from the title page all the way up to this point. But it says our description should identify him roughly. That is probably the best description of an alcoholic or an addict or both that I've seen in the file from pages, the title page all the way to this point. So that's all I got. Thank you. Pew pew pew.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. What I'll do is I'll stop the recording. We'll set it so everyone can unmute. We'll wrap up with a prayer. Thanks for coming, and we hope you'll be with us next week.